Hi and welcome to another episode of Delaware County Political News, Meet the Elected Official. I am your host, Larry DeMarco, and today we are here with Phillip Block, councilperson of Chester Heights Borough. Phil has been living in Chester Heights since 2001. He was elected to Borough Council in November 2015 based upon his platform of preserving open space, increasing communication between council and borough citizens, and advocating for the needs of his neighbors. He and his wife, Kelly, have two children, Grant and Lauren. Phil, thank you for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for having me here today.
Phil, what are your duties as a councilperson?
Well, I categorize the duties of a councilperson into four categories. And the first category is legislative, where the council enacts and passes ordinances and resolutions that govern basically how the town is run and how the community lives together. The second area is administrative. So the council has administrative duties over the employees of the borough, including the borough secretary, the roadmaster, the emergency management coordinator, and other functions like that, such as the ordinance officer. And we hire and maintain the administrative control over the borough employees, as well as ensuring that the borough has emergency and fire services, as well as services to prepare and keep the roads up and running, and maintaining the parks and other open spaces of the community. The third area is financial responsibility. It is the responsibility of a council person to raise money through taxes and through other forms of monies like permitting fees, and to deploy that money to the benefit of the community and to ensure that money is used properly for the use of the citizens, and to prepare a budget on a yearly basis to operate that money for the community. And fourth is land management, ensuring zoning and proper use of the land in the borough for the community.
Phil, what got you interested in running for office and becoming an elected official?
Well, I ran because I got very passionate about a very specific issue within the borough, and that was overdevelopment, in my view, of open space within the town. So before I ran for office, the borough of Chester Heights basically is developed in large residential tracts of 1 acre to 1.5 acres or greater. And at the time, a large housing development of townhouses came into the community and was approved by the previous council, much to the anger of most of the citizenry of the borough, including myself. And I thought, hey, I need to do something about this. I need to stand up. I think I can make a difference. So in talking with my family, I decided to run for Borough Council in 2015 to address issues about overdevelopment and what I thought was a lack of communication between our local government and the citizens of the borough.
So that's some of the issues that you've been dealing with. Are there any other issues, and what issues are ahead in the future?
Well, in general, most councils have some very common issues. Taxation is always an issue. When you're looking at spending people's money, you need to always focus on, do I have enough money, especially for, say, emergency and fire services, or to plow the roads? Are we raising enough money, but do we want to raise taxes and cause people to spend more money, or do we have enough money? There is always that tension between having enough money coming in and not charging the citizens too much through taxes. That will always be the case. In terms of development in the borough, never want to stop somebody from developing their property if they choose to sell it and making money on their property, because your property is an investment you put money into. But we still want to maintain the nice rural character of Chester Heights. So where is the fine balance between allowing development but having too much overdevelopment? Those are issues that are always at play. Now, the solution is coming to find the right medium between those two. And that's where you get into some heated debates on where you point out how much money do you need, how much money do you raise, and how much development do you allow in your town. Those will be always concerns for any council person. Coming up in the next year or two, for Chester Heights will be development. There are probably some large tracts that will be available for development in Chester Heights. And a lot of us moved out to Chester Heights years ago because of the rural nature of the community. Now, there's a lot of growth in Delaware County because of our great school systems, the amenities of Delaware County. Chester Heights has that same problem. We're seeing a tremendous amount of what I would consider overdevelopment in the surrounding communities. That pressure is also on Chester Heights. So we want to keep the rural nature look of the community, but still having some development to appease the needs of the incoming population. Secondly is traffic. Traffic is a problem throughout the entire county. It is a big issue in Chester Heights. Due to the traffic flow patterns of the towns around us, a lot of traffic is being funneled into our borough. Unfortunately, a number of roads throughout our borough are actually state controlled and not borough controlled. So there's not a lot the council can do, but we are seeing tremendous amounts of traffic issues starting to form in our community, and that traffic issues have to be balanced with development issues. And those are two of the main issues I see coming up in the next year or two within our borough.
This past election cycle, there was a contentious election in the county races between the GOP and the Delco Dems. However, your borough can be an example that local borough township races can be just as contentious. Please explain that dynamic.
Yes, I will say the contentiousness of the 2017 elections in Chester Heights was a bit surprising. Some of the history, back when I ran in 2015, the council had been run by Republicans, and through some of the issues I already talked about, myself and two fellow Democrats ran and were elected to council, and were some of the first Democrats elected to borough council in Chester Heights in over 30 years.
How many seats are there on the council?
There are 7 seats on the council, and in the election of 2015, Democrats won control of 3 of those seats. Over the coming year, due to retirement and some resignations on the council actually appointed additional Democrats, to the point that within a year, the Democrats actually had control of 6 of the 7 seats on council by the end of 2016. So it was a complete reversal of control of that council. Now, I would just like to point out that Chester Heights in local politics, to be honest, really are more about town issues, not really, in my opinion, Democrat versus Republican issues. You don't have issues at the local level that you would typically see at a state or federal level. We're not talking about choice issues. We're not talking about gun policy issues. Really, we're talking about issues about the nature of a town, which to me transcends partisan politics. However, in 2017...
Phil, you said choice issues. You meant abortion choice, correct?
As an example, yes.
Sure.
Women's rights issues, women's health issues, however you want to frame that, on whatever side of the politics you're on, that is not really a local issue in the borough.
Just want to clarify. Sorry for interrupting.
Thank you, Larry. So in 2017, when the appointed Democrats were up for re-election, there was a very strong push by the Republican Party to regain those seats. And to a large extent, the campaign in Chester Heights turned very negative, and we were a bit surprised about how that campaign was run and the amount of monies that were spent in that campaign to win back those Republican seats. I will say the Republican efforts were successful, and they were able to win back those seats this year in 2018. The Democrats now are back in the minority of only having 3 seats on the council, but it was a very, very contentious race, especially in the last few weeks. However, I'm looking forward to that this year, perhaps we can form a good bipartisan relationship between the two parties for the betterment of the community.
What efforts will be involved in building a bridge between to parties where there is a partisan divide?
Well, at the local level, again, and this is a little different than at a state or federal level, but at the local level, the first thing we have to do is put aside the rancor that came through during the election cycle through November. And we have to look at that everybody on the council is really there for the purpose of making Chester Heights a better place to live. We will have different approaches on how to do that. There will be issues about money and where to spend it. There will be issues about open space and open development. But in general, we have to come together and look at what is best for the community. And in honesty, Chester Heights is ideal for local politics. You can get into politics like I did, just being a passionate citizen. You don't have to have a national following behind you to run. That's what's great about local politics. If you're passionate about what affects your community, you can get in, you can run, you can actually make a difference. And whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we all got into these races, we all put our time out, we're all serving on the council because we believe in a better borough, a better Chester Heights, and if we come across and have those ideals together, then we can actually work together. That is what my hope will be.
And the county council will be trying to do the exact same thing as you all try and do it in Chester Heights.
Yes.
Chester Heights Council had to respond to apparently an unfair article in the Delco Times. Explain how the Delco Times was misleading, apparently misleading, and how you set the record straight.
Well, that was an issue around an attempt by the council, a bipartisan attempt by the council, to revamp our 26-year-old property maintenance ordinance. And in communications and requirements on trying to pass an ordinance, we had a public meeting where reporters from the Delco Times were present. One of the issues that the ordinance addresses is decaying and dying trees along our public roadways, that in 2017 alone we had, and I don't know the number exactly, but about 7 or 8 trees actually come down on our roadways, which were taking out power lines and fortunately did not hit any cars or buses, but obviously is a public safety issue. There are, as part of the revamp of this ordinance, we took the penalties associated with not following this ordinance from what was $250 and actually the possibility of jail time, and made it consistent with the current 2017 state levels of no jail time but allowing up to a $1,000 fine. Come to behold, you read the Delco Times article, which in general was well written and a good article, but the headline was a bit dramatic. The headline read that if your trees are too tall, Chester Heights Borough will charge you $1,000. Well, first of all, the ordinance had nothing to do with tree height. It had to do with decaying and dying trees that were being a potential risk to safety, public health, and knocking out power lines. And yes, the ordinance allows the borough to charge up to $1,000 of fines. It's not like we're going to go out and charge people $1,000, if they have a dead or dying tree. We're really just trying to get people to maintain their trees along the highways so that they don't injure people. What we did to address that is that I had the privilege of writing a letter to the editor addressing the fact that the headline was misleading and what the ordinance actually stated. And I was proud to get all members of council, both the Republican and the Democrats, to sign off on the letter. And in fairness, the Delco Times did publish that letter. So we were able to address it through a letter to the editor.
So the moral of the story is, you might not want to just read the headlines of articles, but if you see something of interest or of importance to you, read the article to make sure that the headline and the story are consistent with each other.
And I will point out, it did give us an opportunity to allow us to express what the purpose of this proposed ordinance change was to a much larger audience, Rather, a lot of people don't come, unfortunately, to public meetings that the council puts out. Voter apathy or resident apathy could be a little bit where you don't get a lot of people coming to the public meetings, so they don't actually know what the ordinance change is about. By writing this letter to the editor, it actually allowed us to get more about what our message was on this ordinance out to a larger audience.
And really the whole point is public safety.
Yes.
Phil, what do you do when you are not a council person?
Well, I work for a chemical company headquartered in downtown Philadelphia. I am a technology director for one of the groups in this chemical company. And what I do in that group is I develop, research, and market chemical products to treat the environment. And so the chemistries I design and sell are used to treat contaminated soil and groundwater, contaminated air coming out from, say, a coal-fired power plant. And more recently, I've been involved in treating and disinfecting wastewaters and treating drinking water. And I'll be honest, I have a PhD in chemistry, and I'm also a chemical engineer. And I've been very fortunate in my life to be able to match my passion and love for chemistry with my love of the environment. And over the last 17 years, I've had the great ability to actually marry those two in my professional life.
Do we have a global crisis about water?
Absolutely. Globally, a large portion of the population of this planet does not have access to clean, potable water, either for drinking purposes or for agricultural purposes. This has significant issues worldwide, not only in terms of potential conflict over water rights, but also potential health effects. If you remember the Haitian earthquake from, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, the Haitian earthquake actually took out their wastewater treatment capabilities, and as a result, they had tremendous amounts of cholera deaths associated with an epidemic from the loss of their water treatment. As our climate changes in the future, this is going to drive the problem worse as the natural lakes and rivers around the world shrink. The poorer populations are going to be very stressed, and this is going to lead to refugee crises and potentially conflicts over access to water. Here in the United States, we also have a problem. It is hard to imagine this living in the Northeast, where we have tremendous amounts of fresh water, but we have drought conditions throughout much of the United States, in the Midwest, in the South, Southwest, and West. And this is also where the population trends in the United States are moving to. They're moving to areas where the natural aquifers have shrunk by more than half. We just don't have the drinking water capabilities in places like Texas and California. And that even becomes a bigger issue. If you follow the wildfires in California, they may not have the water needed to put out these fires. So, and also as you drain the aquifers and we run into water issues, you get a lot of saltwater intrusions from the oceans, which can greatly impact the farming communities and our agricultural systems. And then in one area that greatly impacts every single one of us is the increase in what we would call pollutants of concern in our drinking water. So as people throw their pharmaceuticals into the toilet, as an example, or if you take medication and most of that medication actually passes through you, that goes through your wastewater and eventually into your drinking water. So every sip of water you take has small amounts of chemicals that are carcinogenic, that can cause cancer, that are endocrine disruptors, which can change the hormones in your body. And while the long-term effects of these small but persistent contaminants in our drinking water are not well known, they are well known on how they impact things like frogs and amphibians. And there's a significant impact on these indicator organisms, and that can eventually impact human health.
You currently hold 10 patents and 4 patent applications,
Yes.
most involving methods to clean the environment and treat contaminated water. Share a little bit about that.
Well, through my scientific career, I've managed everything. I've been a bench chemist. I've managed research at a lab level. I've managed research at a division level. And again, for the last 17 or so years of my life, it's really been focused on treating the environment. So out of those 10 patents, 7 of them are specifically targeted to treating contaminants that get into our groundwater and soil. Things like petroleum, hydrocarbons from gas stations or spills, chlorinated solvents, which are carcinogenic, which are used as degreasing agents and dry cleaning agents. I get to develop chemicals that you put into the soil and groundwater and actually destroy those, leaving a much cleaner environment. One of my patents actually involved using a hydrogen peroxide to reduce nitrous oxide compounds that come out of the smokestacks of coal-fired power plants. Nitrous oxide compounds form smog, so you could actually use my chemical to reduce smog. And more recently, I've been developing technologies which we are patenting on disinfecting wastewater. Currently, wastewater typically is disinfected predominantly with bleach, which is chlorine. Chlorine has a long-term impact in the environment. My chemistry is environmentally friendly and can bring wastewater to a very safe level and kill the pathogens that may make us sick in our wastewater but not impact the environment. So my patents have been really around treating environmental concerns with environmentally friendly chemistries.
And these are patents that you developed through the course and scope of your employment, right?
That is correct. So, since I've graduated grad school in 1993, through all those years, this represents the body of scientific endeavor that I have pushed forward.
Directly what you're passionate about, right?
I am very passionate. One of the things I'm very passionate is about the environment. To me, the environment is our legacy. It's our legacy to our children. It's our legacy to our grandchildren. It is important if you love recreational sports in the state of Pennsylvania. Damaging our rivers can damage trout fishing and your ability to enjoy swimming in lakes and rivers. We live in our environment. If we damage our environment, potentially irrevocably, there will be impacts on the quality of our life and the quality of life of our descendants.
Well, it's great to love your work, and it sounds like you have great work.
Thank you.
Phil, why should people vote for you in the upcoming Statehouse Race?
I'm a scientist and a corporate businessman, and as a result, I can take a fact-based, pragmatic approach to assessing and promoting legislation at the state level. I can work on a bipartisan level with my Republican colleagues. However, I do have a set of bedrock principles that I will fight for, and I will fight for the residents of the 168th District and the state. These principles include fighting for the environment, which is very important as what we leave to our children and our children's children. I will fight for equity in education throughout the state. I will fight for equal rights for all people in the district and in the state. And I will fight for generating and promoting sensible gun regulations that everybody in the state can gather around and agree upon. In addition, within the district, I am very passionate about the issues surrounding the Mariner East 2 pipeline. It is a source of significant concern regarding the safety of the local residents and how this pipeline was actually initiated in terms of people's property being taken, people's property values being impacted, and what we actually consider a public utility. And I think we need legislation at the state level to address public utilities and how projects are approved.
Phil, why do you want to run for the State House?
Well, when I started life in politics, if you will, by running for the Borough Council, I ran, to be honest, like a lot of people, because I was angry about an issue. And as I won that election and been serving as a councilman, I've really developed a passion for promoting and advocating for the needs of the residents. I see the same issues of concern that we have at a federal level, at the state level. And I feel the need and the passion to advocate for the people of the 168th District and the people of the state in issues that impact our everyday lives. And was the turning from that, I have an anger about an issue, to I realize I can actually do something positive for my neighbors and for the folks of our community. And that is what's driving me to seek your representation in the 168th District.
Phil, we'll leave it there, and I want to thank you for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Thank you very much, Larry, and thank you for the opportunity to come speak with you today.
We have been here with Phil Block, and I am your host, Larry DeMarco. If you like this video, please don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and forward this link to all the people on your contact list and Facebook friends. We are signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.